He's only gone and done it. Sir Mark Cavendish, at the age of 39, has just broken his own record and surpassed that of Eddie Merckx by taking a record-breaking 35th stage win at the Tour de France. 3 agonising years after his 34th stage win in 2021, Cavendish has further etched his name into cycling's history books, setting a record that is unlikely ever to be beaten. Before I get on to look back at his extraordinary career, I'm going to take a deep dive on the final kilometre of Stage 5 into Saint-Vulbas. His team, Astana, had already spent the final 40 k's or so keeping Cavendish right at the head of affairs and out of danger. That can come at a cost, leaving you with fewer rides to position and shelter you in the closing stages. If we look at this overhead shot from 800 metres to go, he does still have teammates around him. Ballerini is on his way backwards, his job done, and Mirko soon realises that he's going to be of no further help either. Cavendish could still use Cees Bol as his guide, but instead goes back to what he does best, using his sprinter's instinct to guide him onto the best wheels through the best gaps while saving as much energy as possible. It's at this point, with 650 metres to go, that Cavendish manages to get himself onto Jasper Philipsen's wheel, although it does require the use of his shoulders to defend that position, firstly against Phil Bauhaus of Bahrain Victorious, and a few moments later with Fernando Gaviria of Movistar. What's incredible is that even once he's on Philipsen's wheel and he sees Van der Poel launching his lead out, Cavendish decides not to stay with them. Most sprinters would assume they're in the best possible position given the success of the Alpecin duo in recent times, but here, at 66 kilometres per hour, you can see he's eyeing up that space that's opening up to his left. I'm no sprinter, but I think he's not only looking at that space as a place to jump through out of the wind, but also mindful that he doesn't want to get pinned up against the barriers. A few frames later, he's darted onto the wheel of Israel Premier Tech's Pascal Ackermann, and there's still the risk that he might get boxed in. As it turns out, it's Philipsen who finds himself a little boxed in, whilst Ackermann opens up the space in front of Cavendish to allow him a clean run to the finish line. As it opens up in front of him, he takes a brief glance to his left to check that it's all clear, and then darts to the other side of the road to ensure that those behind him aren't getting the benefit of his slipstream. The rest, as they say, is history. Philipsen does eventually get onto his wheel, but he doesn't have the power to come out of the slipstream, let alone pass him. Win number 35, and here's what he had to say in his post-race interview.
We just wanted to get the running to do it, I guess. You know, I'm a little bit of disbelief. Like, you know, Astana have put a big gamble on this year to make sure we're good here at the Tour de France. My boss has done it. Yeah, we big gamble to come here and try and win at least one stage, you know. That's a big gamble for my boss Alex Vinokurov, the team to do. That shows an ex-bike rider, someone who knows what the Tour de France is, and know you have to go all in, and we've done it. We worked exactly what we wanted to do. How we built the team, what I've done with my equipment, like every little detail has been kind of put towards specifically today. You know, I said in Torino it would be nice to sprint, but Thank you, boss.
Because
You see what I mean? You see what it means? Like, okay, doesn't mean we're going to be top in the UCI rankings or anything, but the Tour de France is bigger than cycling, isn't it? You know what I show this race. You know what Vino shows this race.
But last year, when you broke your shoulder on this Tour de France, when you were struggling on day one, dropped early, did you still? You always believed it. You always believed it.
Yeah, like the first time being bad on the first day of a bike race, this with the Tour de France. This normally takes me days to get into it, you know. But I know how it works. My trainer and the people around me know how it is, you know. And look, if everybody knew how it was, everyone would be a bike rider. My job would be a lot harder, wouldn't it? But I've done 15 Tour de France's now. I don't like to have bad days, I don't like to suffer, but I know it's just in the head, and you push, you get through it, and you work into it, and you can have an opportunity. You know, things have to still go your way. Yeah, like we didn't nail it as a team like we wanted to do, but the boys improvised and got me there in the best position, and I shot onto whatever train was going, and was able to win. So.
But that makes you the best, that mindset, that mental strength that you have?
It's definitely a benefit, you know, especially when you're not physically as good as everybody else. It's definitely beneficial to be able to use your head a bit more. So.
You beat the records, congratulations.
Thank you.
Incredible. And what gave me goosebumps was seeing almost every single rider make an effort to go up and congratulate him. Not just teammates, not just former teammates, everybody showing their respect to a rider who's won through multiple generations. So how did we, or at least he, get here? Well, Cavendish's pro career commenced in 2007 with T-Mobile. Heiko Salz-Wedel, who had worked with Cavendish as a track rider at British Cycling, had taken up a role as head of development at the T-Mobile development programme. He persuaded Mark to ride for the Sparkasse team in Dortmund, Germany, where he raced in 2005 and 6. Over those 2 seasons, he picked up enough wins and results to earn himself his first pro contract, and his first win didn't take too long to come. In early February, at his first pro stage race, he finished second on stage 1 despite working for his team. 2 months later, he took his first victory as a pro. And not just any win, the Belgian Sprinters Classic Scheldeprijs, where he beat the great Robbie McEwen, his childhood idol. That was followed by 2 wins at the 4 Days of Dunkirk, 2 more at the Vuelta a Catalunya, and then another at the Stur Electro Tour, taking his tally up to 6. And that was enough to be selected to ride the Tour de France as a 22-year-old neo-pro. That first Tour de France wasn't as fruitful as he'd hoped. A 9th place on stage 4 after 3 opening stages in England was as good as it got. As the race hit the mountains on stage 8, he climbed off at the feed zone. So it wasn't the Tour de France debut that he'd hoped for, but a further 6 wins that year underlined his credentials as a future great. His first taste of Grand Tour success came at the following year's Giro d'Italia, where he picked up 2 wins, as well as gifting a further one to teammate Andre Greipel. It was the Manxman who was chosen as the designated sprinter at the 2008 Tour, though, a race in which he did deliver the goods. It was on stage 5 to Châteauroux that he got his first taste of glory, becoming the youngest ever British rider to win a stage of the Tour de France. From there, things snowballed, with a further 3 wins on stage 8, 12 and 13. That tour was the first chapter of a story that would last far longer than anybody could have predicted, with as many highs and lows along the way as a best-selling novel. 2009 was Cavendish and his HTC Mobile lead-out train in their pomp. A win at Milano-San Remo at the first time of trying, in the most nail-biting finale possible. Heinrich Hausler had sprung an early sprint and gapped the field, leaving Cavendish with no choice but to start his own sprint early. Nobody came around him though, and he pipped Hausler by millimetres at the line. He took a further 7 wins, including 3 at the Giro, where he wore the pink jersey for the first time, between Milano-San Remo and what would be his most successful Tour de France. In 2009, he was just unstoppable. 6 stage wins from 7 sprint finishes, including 1 into Aubenas, in which the peloton was only 40 riders strong. Such was the severity of the stage that preceded the finish. He would end that year with 23 pro wins from 86 days of racing, a tally that no rider has since been able to match. Now, whilst Cavendish had a slower start to 2010, he got his form right for the Tour. 5 stage wins on that occasion, although the green jersey eluded him once again. That year also marked his first participation at the Vuelta a España, where his 3 stage wins meant he'd joined the select club of riders to have won at least 1 stage of every Grand Tour, as well as netting him his first Grand Tour points jersey. 1 year later, he also took 5 wins at the Tour, but there was a key difference that year. For the first time in his career, those stage wins were enough to see him win the green jersey. It wasn't the only jersey of note that year either. At a relatively flat World Championships in Denmark that autumn, Great Britain controlled the race from start to finish, and Cavendish paid them back with the rainbow jersey, their first in the men's road race since Tom Simpson in 1965. 2011 marked the end of the road for HTC High Road, the team structure he'd been with since he turned pro. It coincided, though, with the early years of Team Sky, who snapped him up. At the Tour de France, though, it presented him with a problem. Despite the 9 riders per team rule at the time, Team Sky was very much behind Bradley Wiggins' ambitions of winning the Tour de France overall. And they were right to back him. He did win, but it meant that Cavendish's lead-out train was lacking compared to previous years. Despite that, he did take 3 stage wins, including his 4th consecutive win on the Champs-Élysées. To make that even more special, it was Wiggins in his yellow jersey, leading out Cavendish in his rainbow bands. Hard to imagine that scenario ever happening again. Despite the success there, he moved teams in 2013 for his first stint at Quick-Step. It was his second most prolific season in terms of win rate, 19 in total, including 5 at the Giro, where he won the points jersey for the first time and took his 100th career win. 2 stages ensued at the Tour that year. But one of the boxes that Cavendish still had left to tick by 2014 was the Tour de France yellow jersey. A sprint stage into Harrogate in the UK on stage 1 that year was the perfect opportunity, but a crash in the finale denied him that dream and took him out of the race. A solitary stage win at the Tour in 2015 had left some people questioning whether the Cavendish era was over, but he bounced back in the most emphatic style. Riding for Team Dimension Data in 2016, Cavendish started the Tour that year as an underdog in the sprint for the first time. The emergence of German powerhouse Marcel Kittel was seen by many as a changing of the guard, but Cavendish had other ideas. Not only did he add a further 4 stage wins to his tally that season, he also won the opening stage to put himself into the yellow jersey for the only time in his career. Nobody, though, could have foreseen that that would be his last taste of Tour success for 5 long years. In a 3-year period from 2018, Cavendish didn't win a single race. He struggled with his form and with his own mental health, and at the end of 2020, he gave a tearful interview in which he admitted he was staring down the barrel of retirement. He could have retired. He was already the most successful sprinter of all time. But this is Mark Cavendish. Such was his determination to win and to prove his doubters wrong, he signed with Quick-Step for the minimum wage. Nobody thought he'd get back to his best, and even 4 stage wins at the Tour of Turkey in 2021 left us with as many questions as it answered. Were it not for an injury to his then teammate Sam Bennett, Cavendish may never have ridden a Tour de France again. As it was, though, he had a last-minute call-up, and so he arrived in Brest for the Grand Depart that year with everything to win and nothing to lose. It didn't take long for Cavendish to silence the doubters. He won on stage 4 and then again on stages 6 and 10. A 4th win 3 days after that took his career tally of Tour wins to 34, level with the great Eddy Merckx. His then manager, Patrick Lefevre, suggested he should retire on the spot if he won again on the Champs-Élysées. He didn't, and despite also winning the green jersey for the 2nd time that year, Lefevre didn't select him to ride the race again the following season. Staring retirement in the face yet again, Cavendish found another believer in Alexander Vinokurov, team manager at Astana, Kazakhstan. During the Giro that year in 2023, in which he won the final stage, Cavendish announced that it would be his last as a pro. One last Tour de France then, one last opportunity to take the stage win record outright. And he came very close. He was pipped to the line by a dominant Jasper Philipsen on stage 7 into Bordeaux, but it was a result that kept the dream alive. Not for long though. 24 hours later, he was stretchered off in an ambulance, having broken his collarbone in what was quite a silly mid-stage crash. The months that ensued saw no end of speculation. Was that really his last tour, or would he give it one last try? Everybody hoped he would. None of us wanted our final memory of him to be in an ambulance. After much deliberation with his family, Cavendish decided to continue. One final strive for 35. A win at the Colombia Tour at the start of the year gave hope. Another in Hungary just weeks before the Tour gave more. But as we all know, the Tour of Hungary is not the Tour de France, so the doubts persisted. In true Mark Cavendish style, he has now put those doubts to rest. Again, and perhaps for one final time. His win on stage 5 was nothing short of miraculous. a glimpse back into the heyday of Mark Cavendish, where every decision made at over 60 kilometres per hour was the right one, where nobody could match him when he kicked to the line. By the time you watch this video, he may well have won a 36th, or maybe even more than that. But it doesn't matter. He's put that record to bed. He's underlined his status as the best sprinter of all time, and he can now retire on top after 18 years at the top. He's just put the cherry on the icing of his own massive cake, and he can eat that cake without guilt when he hangs up his wheels. Chapeau, Sir Mark Cavendish.